Hey, it's Dan here, and I just looked at the calendar and realized that today is my 33rd anniversary. And what that anniversary is, it's not a wedding anniversary. It's 33 years ago today that I quit smoking dope. And I'd used marijuana for about 11 years at that time. And, I first started smoking dope. It was, kind of I was a biker back then. But even beyond that, I was in 10th grade when I first started smoking dope. But, running with the rough crowd and doing all that kind of stuff. And long story short, over the years, I became more and more and more dependent on marijuana. And I reached a point where I hated it. It wasn't fun anymore, but I had to continue to do it just in order to feel normal. And I had a brother that was killed in May of 1980. He fell off a roof, fell on his head, and died. And I'd already been smoking a lot of dope prior to that, but when he died, I kind of went into a nosedive. And I just started staying stoned. First thing I think about in the morning when I wake up is, smoking a bowl. And last thing I'd think about when I went to bed at night was smoking another bowl. And that's all I thought about all day long. And, it makes it kind of hard to work. It makes it hard to have a family life. It makes it hard to really just to function. And why? Because I was always stoned. And my mind was turning to mush, and my memory was terrible. I was a house painter for 26 years, or 36 years actually. I ran my own company for 26 years, but I'd be in the house working, and I'd need a tool. Say I needed a hammer, and so I'd walk out to the truck to grab my hammer. Well, by the time I got to my truck, I'd stop and I'd think, oh gosh, what did I need? What did I come out here for? And I might stand there for 2-3 minutes. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? Trying to think of what did I even come out to my truck to get. And finally I thought, well, maybe I needed a screwdriver. So I'd grab a screwdriver, head back into the house. And as soon as I got back into the house, I couldn't even remember what I was doing when I got in there. So, figure out what I was doing. And I thought, oh crap, I needed a hammer. So I'd go back to my truck. And by the time I got back to my truck, I couldn't remember that I needed a hammer. I might have grabbed a pair of pliers. I might do this 1 or 2 or 3 times each time, and it sucks. It sucks living that way, and I reached a point where I hated it. But by that time, I had built a real dependence on smoking dope. And kind of a long story short, I started praying that God would help me to get off of drugs and to straighten my life out a little bit, because it was kind of a train wreck at that time in my life. And so I had prayed for quite a long time, and on this particular day, the 13th day of January, that would have been 1982, and my son, I'd adopted a little boy, and he was 6 months old at that time, and it really was a lot of, different emotions that I went through, because now I still felt like I was a kid. Now I had a kid. I had somebody that I had to take care of that was dependent on me, and my mind was toast. And how's I going to take care of this kid, So anyway, long story short, I'd been praying for quite a long time that God would help me to get off drugs. And on this particular day, I'd worked that day and came home early, and I needed to cut some firewood. I was out in my garage cutting up firewood, and I had a wood stove out in my garage, and I had one in the house, and I burned wood. So I'd been out there cutting wood for quite a long time, and this whole time I'd been arguing with myself, because I hadn't taken any dope to work with me that day. So I'd been straight all day long, but it was a struggle. I mean, it was hard, It was all these different games that you play with in your mind, and it's like, well, you know what? I worked hard today, and I deserve it. I'd just go smoke me up a bowl, And they're like, no, God, you could at least go one day. You could go 24 hours without getting stoned. Certainly you could do that. And so I had this argument going back and forth all day long in my mind, and so finally it's like, doggone it, I'm just tired of fighting it. And so I went over to my workbench and I loaded me up a couple bowls and just this feeling of release that I got. It's just like, this feels good, I just kind of got in this mellow frame of mind, and I decided to go outside for a little bit and look around and just kind of, enjoy the high for a few minutes before I went back to work. And I walked outside, and I realized that the sky was blue. Now, here in Boise where I live, we have something called a temperature inversion. And what happens, we've got the city is in a valley, and it's surrounded by mountains. And what happens is that it gets warmer in the mountains than it is here in the valley, and we get a layer of clouds, and it's ugly, nasty stuff. In fact, today I'm looking out here and the sky's blue and it's beautiful outside, and we've been having this temperature inversion for like the last 3 weeks, where literally you don't see the sun, and it's depressing and it sucks. Okay, Boise's a beautiful town, but every year we have this temperature inversion. So I was looking out there outside, looking around, and all of a sudden I realized that I hadn't seen the sun for like a month, and I realized the sky was blue, and everything had about 8 inches of snow on it, and there was frost, like all the telephone wires and the power lines, how they look when they're really thick with frost, and they look like they're about 3 inches thick, well, it's just like an inch of frost all the way around on the line. And I just was looking around, and I was struck with the beauty, and I said, wow, Lord, this is beautiful. And the second that I said that, I said it out loud, I heard inside of my mind, I heard a voice. And what the voice says is, Dan, you can't smoke it if you haven't got it. And it was just kind of a matter-of-fact voice, but it was not in my mental patterns, if that makes sense. And to the point, you've heard of the still small voice. Well, I suppose you could maybe call it the still small voice, but it was outside my mental patterns. And it was to the point where it rocked my world, and I like jerked, and I looked around, and it just blew my mind, and I stood there, and I heard it again. He says, Dan, you can't smoke it if you haven't got it. Why don't you burn it? And I stood there, and I felt like in the pit of my stomach, I felt sick, and I felt this wave of resistance coming up from my stomach and coming up, and it's like all these questions. It's like, well, Lord, what if I can't make it? What if I hurt? What if I try and I can't do it? All these questions. And I felt like God was asking me to step off of a 1,000-foot cliff with no guarantee that there was going to be anything underneath of my foot that would hold me up. And I had no visible means, nothing that I could see that was going to hold me up if I did what he was asking me to do. And mind you, this all took place in just seconds, just a few seconds. And then I heard it again. It says, why don't you burn it? And I said, Lord, what if I can't make it? What if I hurt? What if I go through all these withdrawal symptoms? And he said, burn it, burn it, burn it. And I went into the garage, and I grabbed everything that I had, got it all out of my stash box. I walked over to the stove, and I lifted off the lid, I threw it all in, and I looked up and I said, there! I was like, are you happy now? And I went into the house, I grabbed a red felt tip pen, and I circled the day on the calendar, January 13th, 1982. And I walked away that day from 11 years of drug addiction, 11 years of drug abuse. And I took a hard right turn, and my life has been heading that direction ever since. Now, there's been things that I've gone through since then. I'm not going to say that life's always been rosy. I've been through a divorce. I've had some hard times. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. God gave me deliverance that day, 33 years ago today, and he gave me deliverance and victory over a drug problem that I had for 11 years. And I'm really thankful for that. So anyways, I know this is getting to be a long video, and I didn't mean it to be this long, but just kind of opening myself up here and bearing my soul and sharing just a little bit about who I am and what I'm all about. So yeah, 33 years today, praise God. I've been straight for 33 years, been off drugs, and really have no desire to ever go back. And today's a great day. Hey, this is Dan Smith. Hope this blessed your life today. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye for now.